Don't skip ahead until you see PostFX Settings because that won't help you. Just follow along and I'll go through this as quickly as I can. These are the sort of results you can expect from watching this video. What's good is this will actually benefit your experience with NVGs too, which is pretty rare for a one-size-fits-all config. Before we get into it though, there's something important you need to hear. Okay, so since my last settings video, BSG made a pretty big change to night raids. They got a lot darker and it's left people struggling to see again. And visibility, it's something that Tarkov players sacrifice in the name of immersion. And I get it, this game is beautiful in its own right, until ultimately you die to a player whose game looks something like this. Hello? And understandably, you'd probably be quite frustrated. For the most part, NVGs are useless in this game. Even after BSG tweaked the night raids and made them much darker, I've still found a way to abuse the system and see pretty much everything at night. Definitely more than you can see with NVGs. If you didn't know, NVGs add a filter over your screen. They're grainy, completely flat in colour, and limited at range. Not to mention they prevent you using a lot of optics. Now, there is a graphics overhaul coming to Tarkov, and I really hope it addresses issues like this so we can all fight on a level playing field. I totally understand why some of the settings I'm about to show you might seem unfair, but until this big overhaul, you'll probably find yourself dying to players using these strategies. So, let's get into these game-breaking settings. As always, we're going to start in the game tab. You can ignore everything in here apart from FOV and head bobbing. Turn head bobbing to the lowest unless you enjoy your camera shaking around everywhere, and for FOV, this is an important one. When your FOV is high, you get a wider peripheral, less camera recoil, but worse eye relief. And when your FOV is low, you have a smaller peripheral, more camera recoil, but better eye relief. And it's a bit easier to get accurate shots with a 1x. So for the majority of people, somewhere in the middle will give you the best of both worlds. But there are two main reasons you'd want to put your FOV higher or lower. Firstly, if you're someone who particularly struggles spotting people at range, then you want to play on the lowest FOV that you can handle, as this will really help bring everything on the horizon closer to you. And secondly, if you're someone that prefers to use scopes most of the time, you'll find that playing on the lower FOV will greatly help with the shadowing around your scope, which is eye relief. Onto the graphics settings now. With the top section, it's best to keep your resolution and aspect ratio to native. Full screen will provide the best performance, although borderless can be good on Windows 11 due to its upgraded optimizations. But overall, I'd advise full screen for the best latency. And finally, VSync, this should always be off. Texture quality is preference depending on your PC. A lot of people think that setting this to the lowest will give the best performance, which isn't always true. Increasing the texture quality will put more load on your GPU, which is a good thing for those with a CPU bottleneck. So I'd recommend testing this setting out on different maps to see what works best for you. I use high though. Shadow quality, always on low, but again, if you're struggling with frames, you might want to experiment with this the same way as texture quality. LOD quality, you want to run this as high as your PC can handle, because if you didn't know, this setting directly affects the range in which PMCs render in. So when you're playing on a map with long lines of sight, this setting is the difference between someone rendering in or not. I use 3.5. Overall visibility, this is preference, but I play with it up quite high. Typically you can save a few extra frames by putting this to the lowest. Anti-aliasing, this is preference, but I'm running TAA. For those with a lower end PC, you might want to run this off because it is quite taxing. Resampling, DLSS and FSR I won't be touching, but it's worth experimenting with if you do have FPS issues. HBAO, I personally use this on high performance because it adds a lot of definition to the game without sacrificing many frames. But if you want the cleanest look, just keep this off. SSR, you want to either use low or medium depending on how good your PC is. Not many people know this, but SSR actually brightens up dark areas, as you can see from this example in Factory. I didn't notice any difference between visibility when setting SSR higher than medium. It might look a little nicer, but it will cost you more frames and won't provide any more advantage. Anastrophic filtering, this is personal preference, but I have it on because it makes the game look nice. And video reflex, you should always be using this if possible. It massively reduces the latency and makes the game feel a lot nicer. I have this set to on, but plus boost is good too. They both feel slightly different from each other, so again, test them out and see which one you prefer. Sharpness, this is an interesting one. The higher sharpness you play on, the easier you'll be able to see in dark areas. But you might also struggle to spot people in grassy areas because sharpness makes the image a lot noisier. I personally have mine quite low, but test this out and see what you prefer. As for the bottom section, the street setting and grass shadows is all I use. This one helps with my performance on streets, but test it for yourself. And grass shadows just makes the game look nicer, kind of what it says on the tin, grass shadows. Now our graphics settings are complete, we need to adjust our monitor before enabling PostFX. You'll see why in a second, so let's open up NVIDIA control panel, adjust desktop color settings, and I'm also going to open up Tarkov and go somewhere naturally dark, like interchange. Going back to NVIDIA control panel now, I'm going to turn my gamma up to something quite high, like 2, then I'll gradually increase the contrast until that washed out look goes away. This looks about good for me. Finally, we can talk about PostFX. Just quickly, these are the settings on and off, and you can see there's a pretty significant difference. These settings are catered to counter BSG's recent updates to the game, making night raids a lot less visible. So let's break this down so you can get the most out of your display. Starting with brightness, this is the main thing that'll add a lot more definition to your game when you go into the negative values. What's brilliant about this is it also counters the flashlight meta by reducing its brightness. And if you do run NVGs, it'll help with that too. -20 seems to be the sweet spot for my monitor, so start with that and increase or decrease the value until it looks comfortable for you. If you do find your game is getting too dark, that's okay, just open up NVIDIA control panel and tweak the gamma and contrast until it's good again. Saturation, similar to brightness, this can add more definition to your game by reducing the value. It's important that you don't use a positive value over 10 because it changes the way the game renders and will start reducing your visibility. To counter the desaturated look, go into your NVIDIA control panel and increase digital vibrance. Or you can just manually increase the colors on your monitor. It's better to do it this way around because the monitor settings don't change the way the game renders. Whilst we're on the topic, it's the same for colourfulness. I wouldn't recommend touching this at all because again, it changes the way the game renders. Clarity, this is an important one too. It adds a lot of detail to the game, gives better vision in fog at range, and actually reduces the effect of flashlights, making them a bit easier to fight against. Luma Sharpen, again, this will add more definition to the game. It helps outline anything the light touches, and also helps against flashlights slightly. Adaptive Sharpen is also quite good, so definitely test this one out, but I don't use it because it nukes the quality of my recordings. Okay, so those are the core settings out of the way, and you might have noticed I haven't even touched the color grading yet. What's cool about this PostFX setup is because we're using negative brightness, we're adding a lot of definition to the game that wasn't previously there. And that means you can pair this setup with literally any color grading filter you like. You only need to increase the intensity a small amount to get a completely new look to your game. And if you start to feel like the game's getting a little too washed out again, simply decrease the brightness more until you're satisfied. I personally haven't been running any color grades, but it's crazy how this setup makes a lot of them more viable. You can also pair this with colorblind mode. Tritanopia is a commonly used one for people who want to make the grass look more green, but I don't bother touching this either. For night raids, the process is really simple. All you really need to do is turn the gamma up a bit more. It might already be fine depending on what you set it as to begin with, but as an example here, I'm redoing my settings again for night raids, and also a few examples of what it looks like on different maps. Okay, now for the bonus crazy settings. This is the time where you share the video with your homies, ready for the early wipe nighttime factory quests. So in order to see everything, or enough on nighttime factory to do your quests with ease, and make PvP a walk in the park, you'll first want to change your graphic settings. Textures to high, shadows to low, anti-aliasing FXAA, everything else off apart from SSR set to medium, and NVIDIA Reflex doesn't matter. Sharpness needs to be turned all the way up to 3. Now for the PostFX, start with copying my settings as a base, then adjust them to your monitor later. So heading into raid now, you'll immediately want to turn your gamma up to the max, and you may need to adjust your contrast too, until essentially everything becomes outlined and you can navigate around. Gamma and contrast in the NVIDIA control panel, and brightness in the PostFX are the only things you need to tweak to recreate this effect. Again, everyone's monitors are different, so the values that work for me might not work for you. This does actually work on other maps too, so it's an interesting alternative to NVGs. It can flicker a bit on other maps, but for factory it's fine. The important thing is you can still use any optic with this method, whereas NVGs are quite limited. Alright, lads, that's everything. If you need help with your settings or you're just looking for a new Tarkov community to join, I'll leave a link to my Discord down below. Thanks for watching, leave me a comment if this did help you out, and I'll catch you next time.